Hi family, it's Angela back again at it, and today I'll be talking about a very sensitive topic to me. I failed my nursing exit exam 3 times. I failed my NCLEX about 3 times, and I figured today let me make a video about that, and maybe my experience will help somebody, maybe. But anyways, I did fail my exam multiple times, and that was very eye-opening. I'm not gonna say that I'm an A student, but I'm definitely, I always pass my exams. I do very well, always close to the A student level, but pretty well above average, I would just say. I'm just trying to be humble here. But anyway, I did my nursing school and graduated about 2013, but I didn't do my NCLEX about 3 years later. And I was already a licensed vocational nurse by then. And as you know, you pick up a lot of bad habits as a licensed vocational nurse. And sure enough, some of the things that you already know and you think are right per se, are gonna be options in the nursing exam test, to where there'll be options on the answers per se. So 3 years later, I took my NCLEX, and I didn't feel the need to really study much or get too prepared, because I made it through nursing school fairly easy. It was fairly a breeze. I graduated almost top of my class in my RN school. So I figured nursing school was hard as rocks, and I aced it fairly easily. So NCLEX should be a breeze. So I went waltzing into the NCLEX room, and I did my exam, and I failed. It took me back. It took me a while to even realize what just happened. I was like, well, no way, I cannot have failed. Anyways, I was very crushed, and I was like, that had to be a mistake. So I dusted myself up and maybe did a little skimming through a review book here and there. Nothing intentional, because again, I was like, this has to have been a fluke. I mean, there's no way I failed my NCLEX exam. I mean, I know these things, So I figured I'll go and try again a second time. And the night before the NCLEX, I was very nervous, and I didn't sleep much. So going into the NCLEX a second time, I was not well rested. I walked in, and I got really unlucky, because I got the entire 6 hours of the exam, and I was dozing through the whole exam. The moderator was coming every 5 minutes to wake me up in the test, and that was just a bad day. I was sleeping through the test, and sure enough, I got the entire 6 hours. I was there 6 hours on no sleep. Needless to say, when the exam was almost, when the time was running down, like the timer just goes clicking down, and you're like, oh my God, the time, I'm almost running out of time, and I'm not even anywhere close to finished, because I slept through half the exam. So I just started clicking away. I'm like, maybe if I answer as many questions as I can, maybe, I might get an answer or two right. Of course, I wasn't reading the questions, because the time was just, counting down, like seconds by the second, like 60, 59, 58. I was like, oh my goodness. Needless to say, I failed again. I was totally crushed. I went home. I wanted to cry. Well, maybe I might have cried a little. And I didn't want to go back and try it again, because I was totally crushed. I mean, I did not understand what was happening, because again, I graduated close to top of my class. So I didn't see how this was happening to me. But finally, my best friend and a few close family and friends encouraged me to go back and try again. And this time, at least, sleep the night before for sure. And definitely refresh myself, because I was taking my NCLEX a few years after I'd graduated school. So I decided to research why I spent 6 hours the second time and still failed. One of my good friends told me to look at the Saunders book, just like the beginning words, like the words that they tell candidates. At the very beginning of the book, they tell you things to do before the test. Because I personally was not a big fan of the Saunders books because their rationales were good, but they were really difficult. I mean, they were just kind of difficult. They quite didn't teach me how to critically think for the test. Or maybe I just didn't understand how to critically think for the test based on those books. So I loved them for studying, but I quite didn't really like their question banks because I would never really get a good grade on their question banks. And I figured, I should do something different. But I read the forwarding words where they tell you, make sure you sleep well, make sure you eat night before, make sure you're not studying the night before, day before, like rest, do something fun probably. But one thing that really, really caught my attention, there's one point that said, if you're in that test any amount of time and your time is ticking down, especially if you get your 6 hours and your time starts ticking down, do not just click away because that's the natural thing to do. Don't just click without reading the question and being intentional with the answers. Because what the NCLEX is thinking at that point, you're kind of like on the verge of failing or passing. They cannot decide if you're getting a lot of questions right or a lot of questions wrong. You're really like right on the edge. So that one final answer that you give in that NCLEX exam when the time is ticking down, that last answer is what they will really grade you on, and they'll tell you if you've passed or failed based on that final answer. And I was like, so this makes sense why on my second attempt I failed, because I was kind of on the verge of failing and kind of on the verge of passing. But since I was freaking out, I just click without thinking what I was clicking. I was just clicking away so I can get in as many questions as possible. But I was clicking the wrong answers, of course, because I was then reading the questions. So I was like, that is a very interesting point. So I went in on my third try. I tried to do things a little bit different. I took off a whole month of work. I drove from Dallas to Houston for 4 hours on the road driving to Houston to do like a refresher course with the HAST review. They used to offer 5-day classes. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but they used to like give you a 5-day refresher course. Like it's a crash course, really and truly, of all the topics you did in school, but they kind of teach you how to answer questions and how to think critically about these questions. And then they give you a fairly skinny book that has all the chapters and all kind of questions, and it teaches you how to answer these things. And then I believe the year that I went, which was 2000 and I think it was late 2016. So I know it was close to the elections. I took off that whole month, and I think they had also as well, they had Hearst had introduced something that had multiple questions to where you can like do like pop quizzes on the Hearst review website. Like you would have to log in, and then when you finish a chapter, you can go and click and do like a simulation of the NCLEX, but based on just that topic. If it's endocrinology or if it's cardiology, you would go and just click on that subject and do questions about that subject, and it would time you. So you would have to, finish the questions or at least get a passing grade within the time that it was timing you. And I loved those so much because it was so interactive, it was so fun, and I could sit there and do those all day. So basically, I did my 5 days of the refresher course in Houston. I drove 4 hours back home and took the whole month off. And I decided I am going to study as if I've never studied again. I've never really been to nursing school. So I'm going to teach myself these things from scratch, is the approach I took. So I did a once over, like I read the book from page to page, just really reading through it, not really trying to cram anything or understand anything. I was just reading it for the first time. And then so when I finished reading, I started now going chapter by chapter and being very intentional. Like I was studying one chapter, getting it done, taking all the the test bank questions that they had, and then doing the pop quizzes with Hearst. And I did that for each and every chapter. It was so painstaking, but it was actually fun because that pop quiz option that they had was really, really interactive for me, and they made it really fun. So anyways, I finished all the chapters, being very intentional, paying attention. If I'm not understanding something, I would go back and read it again until I finished the whole book, all the chapters. And well in advance of the 1 month, like before the month was over, I was already done with that. And then so one last time I did like a once over from front to end of that book. And by the time, the third time around I was looking at that book, I felt like I knew the book in and out. But one key thing that it taught me was how to think critically. So interestingly, even when I went back to the Saunders book to look, even if I wasn't really looking to look at the questions, because it did not really entice me much into looking at the questions and how they answer these things and all that good stuff, because for some reason it's just not that interactive for me. And I was very amazed at how I was really answering the Saunders questions correctly. Like it was like magic to me. It felt kind of weird that I went through nursing school and I did not realize that you could actually learn how to critically think through questions. So I felt a little bit more encouraged, and in that 1 month I did take off, like almost every few days I would take off from the serious studying mode. I would take off at least maybe a day just to relax here and there, maybe go to lunch with a friend, or even just work one day. But I really didn't work through that 30 days. When I say maybe I worked like a total maybe 3 days because I was kind of bored out of my mind. Anyway, third time round, I was very intentional. On the day before the exam, I started to go to bed early. When I say early, I started to go to bed about 6 p.m. because I was really nervous. And I feared if I tried to go to bed the regular time, like at 9 o'clock, I may never make it to sleep until midnight or later. And I would not be able to rest well. So I went to sleep really early and I slept all night, thankfully. In the morning, I really could not eat because I was very nervous, but I was able to eat a slice of bread and a boiled egg and some tea. So at least I had something in my stomach, but I knew I hadn't eaten enough. So I went into the exam room kind of nervous because, I'd failed 2 times and I was like, oh my goodness, this is a third time. But very interestingly, again, I got 6 hours of the exam. That was so nerve-wracking. But at least I had slept enough, so I didn't sleep through the exam. And then at least I had eaten something, so I was not starving. But I was so careful, and I remember also the Saunders had said it does not matter as long as you answer the basic amount of questions, which I forget, but I think it's 75 questions for the NCLEX. As long as you hit your 75 questions, just be very careful how you answer the questions after that, because even if the time runs out, at least you've answered the minimum basic questions that you need to answer, the 75 questions. So the first 75 questions, I answered them very carefully. And when I say carefully, I was taking at least almost a whole 30 minutes per question. And just my luck, literally like luck would have it, I had select all that apply for literally almost every other question. I cannot believe it, because select all that apply questions, you have like 4, 5, 6, 7 options for an answer. They ask you a question, they give you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options, and you have to select all that apply as an answer. It could be 2 options, it could be 3, it could be 7, it could be 4, but you cannot get even one wrong. You have to get all the options that apply. If you fail one, you have failed that question. And my test felt like it was 99.999% select all that apply. So I was like, I cannot fail again a third time. So I was taking literally like 30 minutes to answer any question. Like, it felt like it. Maybe it wasn't 30 minutes, but I was taking forever to answer a question. Fast forward, I reached my 75 questions. I had been there, I want to say like 4 hours at that point. I was already getting, exasperated. I was getting very like, oh my God, I was getting nervous. But I just remember what Sandra said, do not rush through it. So I painstakingly answered the questions, taking my sweet time, and as luck would have it, I got the entire 6 hours again. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And then again, just like the last time, my time ran out. 6 hours later, I had answered, I want to say less than 120 questions. But I don't even think I reached 100 questions. It's been a while, I forget, but it could have been about 100, between 100 and 120 questions. I know for a fact it was no more than 120 questions. But I had been there all day. 6 hours later, my time is ticking down. 60, 59, 58, 57. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this again. But I remembered Sanders, and I took my time with that last question, and I selected all that applied very carefully, and then boom, the timer stopped. And I remember feeling so defeated. I remember being so pissed. I remember being so frustrated, and I was just about to cry. I left there, drove home. I was mad. When my friend bought me a big piece of cake, and I was like, yep, I probably should take a shot of something because I was pissed. And I was like, I cannot believe this. But anyways, for the next 2-3 days, I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was like, oh my goodness, I think I failed. So I waited, and then used to, when you would try to re-register for an exam again, for the NCLEX again, if it tells you that you cannot register for this exam because your exam number or something like that exists, you know you've passed. But if that exam lets you register for it all the way through until you pay for that exam, guess what? You failed, because it's allowing you to register to take the exam again. So I said, against all my better judgment, I was so nervous. I was like, you know what? I am going to go and try to register and see if it's still working. And I think they were already phasing that out too, because they realized people were doing that, and they were trying to, phase that out. So I went and did that, and it did not take my money. It said, this exam already exists. And I'm like, did I really pass? I don't know. I was so nervous. I was like, maybe this is a fluke. Maybe they already changed it. I'm just going to have to wait. But I couldn't wait. I figured, you know what? I'll just pay for this thing and get my exams early. And I paid. I got my results early. And guess what? I passed. And I was like the most relieved I've been ever in my life. But key pointers that I took from that experience was, first of all, we can all fail. Anybody can fail. And I mean, anyways, if you fail, I figured from that experience, I figured if you fail, just go back to the drawing board and come up with a plan. I decided to study smarter, which, after 2 tries, I figured I might as well study smarter. So I changed my old mentality where I was overconfident. I was really, really overconfident. I was like, I've never failed. This is not the first time I'm going to fail. So I was really overconfident. The second time, I was like really not prepared and overconfident still. It took me two fails for me to realize, it does not matter. It really, NCLEX does not measure how smart you are, how confident you are, or if you are at the top of your class. It does not matter. It really does not measure that. It just wants you to know how to critically think, because almost all the answers on those questions are correct, but they want to know which one is the most correct. So, and that is very hard to decipher, especially if you've been a nurse before. They have all the wrong answers on there because there are things that we do that we're not supposed to do, like we use shortcuts, and those shortcuts will be those shortcuts will be on the options for your answers. So it's really easy to fail if you've been a nurse before. It's fairly easy to fail because there's a lot of things that you think are right, but they're not really quite right. You have to go back and relearn. Anyways, back to the key pointers that I took from this experience of me failing my NCLEX. Study smarter is the first thing that I realized. You should study smarter. So also I realized just because you fail does not mean you're a failure. I did feel like a failure, but later from that experience, it made me realize just because you fail, you're not a failure. A lot of nursing students struggle through nursing school. It is difficult. So people struggle through nursing school and some struggle through the exam. It does not mean you're a failure. You just have to go back and see what works best. And also I realized that in any class, in any career that you choose, when you're taking classes, you're going to encounter, most likely, you're going to encounter a class that is difficult or challenging for you, and you may, or even exams that are challenging for you, and you may have to retake these exams or classes. Doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're less than perfect or less than others. It might teach you actually to be stronger. You might come out stronger, because I feel like from that NCLEX, from that HEARST review, actually the HEARST review that I did, I feel like I came out a lot stronger as a nurse. I learned how to critical think. I mean, there's a lot of things that I learned from that thing that made me a much stronger and smarter nurse, I think. Because there's a lot of things I was like, I never looked at it that way, or I never knew that it was this way until I retook until I took my refresher course. So I feel like I came out stronger, and I feel like I got more knowledgeable from it. So I say push through and just retake it as many times as you would. Just take it, retake it if you have to. Take your refresher courses, then there's no shame in it. You might actually have to take a refresher course, because I know quite a few people who have gone to school and passed with honors, graduated with honors and all that good stuff, and they still end up taking, the NCLEX and failing. It doesn't mean they're failures or less than perfect. You just have to be strategic. You have to just have a strategy, and you have to learn how to critical think through your NCLEX. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you learned from my experience, and I hope you have the best, and I wish you all the best in your nursing school, for those who are going to nursing school and the ones who are taking the exams. I wish you all the best in your nursing exams. I will find a link for the HEARST review and link it down below, because I personally believe it helped me. It really helped me. And I did not use any other study guides, because it was so confusing, because one book teaches you one strategy, another teaches you another strategy, and sometimes it gets to be so confusing. So I just decided I'm going to stick to one and master it, and master the skills they give you. And you can use more than one. Most people were using more than one, but personally I felt like it was just very confusing. So one or two good ones I think are okay. But HEARST review changed my life, and it really, really made me pass, and it made me a smarter nurse, I believe. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, and click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when I make another video. Well, thank you, and see you in the next one. Bye.